Within a year, Joel would forget his own name. He would forget that he had ever been a man at all. He would stand in a stranger's kitchen, wearing a maid's uniform, answering to Rosa, and feel nothing unusual about it, because by then, there would be no one left inside to feel unusual. But tonight, sitting across from the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, Joel had no idea that any of this was coming. Tonight, he was just a man in love. Erin smiled at him, and the shivers hit before he could brace for them. She was devastating. Her tight black dress clung to every curve as though it had been painted on. Her full breasts rose beneath the fabric, their tops catching the low restaurant light. Golden hair spilled past her shoulders. Her deep blue eyes held a sharpness that made you feel chosen, singled out, pinned in place. And the way she moved, every gesture carried an effortless gravity that pulled a man closer before he even understood he was leaning in. Joel was leaning in. He could not help it. Something about Erin dissolved the rest of the world, and tonight was no different. He felt that familiar, dangerous warmth spreading through his chest, the one that whispered he was already in too deep. Never mind that she was married. Never mind that her husband, Brent, was the kind of wealthy Joel could never hope to approach. He knew exactly what he was to her. She had been honest about that from the start. Brent was wonderful in almost every way that mattered in polite company. Generous, successful, attentive. But behind closed doors, where it counted most, he left her wanting. That was her word. Wanting. And so she had come looking for Joel. That, and the proof she had uncovered that Brent himself was carrying on with at least 3 other women. Erin was not the kind of woman who suffered that sort of hypocrisy in silence. For the past several months, the two of them had been meeting like this, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week. They would appear together in some public place, casual and innocent, then slip away somewhere private. Tonight, Joel had booked a room at a small hotel just down the block, but something felt off. Erin kept glancing over her shoulder, scanning the dim restaurant with quick, nervous eyes. "What's the matter, babe?" Joel asked. "It's Brent," she said, her voice dropping low. "I think he's getting suspicious. I've been away from the house so much lately. Last week I was going through his desk looking for a phone number, and I found a business card. A private investigator. I'm almost certain he's already had my phone tapped, and if he hasn't had me followed yet, it's only a matter of time." She paused, pressing her lips together. "I was careful tonight. I took every precaution. But what if I missed something? What if someone is sitting in this room right now, snapping photographs of us? If Brent saw those pictures, he would lose his mind." "We're safe here," Joel said, trying to sound steady. "It's dark. It's quiet. Even if someone had a camera, the light in here is too low to get anything useful." "Don't you understand?" Erin leaned forward, her eyes sharp with urgency. "With all the digital equipment they have now, they can get a crystal-clear shot in near darkness. It doesn't matter how dim it is. No, my darling. This is too dangerous. We can't keep meeting like this." Joel felt something heavy settle in his throat. He looked down at the table, at his own hands resting uselessly on the cloth, and for a moment the whole room seemed to tilt. Not see Erin anymore. The thought hit him like a fist. She had become everything to him. His reason for getting up in the morning, his anchor. The one bright point in an otherwise ordinary life. How could she just sit there and tell him it was over? "I can't let you walk away," he said quietly. "I need you, Erin. Please. We don't have to end this." "Who said anything about ending it?" She tilted her head, and a mischievous spark lit up her eyes. "I have a plan. A way we can keep going, right under my husband's nose. I know it's going to sound strange, but it will work, and then we won't have to sneak around anymore. We can be together all the time." The relief that flooded through Joel was so sudden, it almost made him dizzy. "How? How do we pull that off right under his nose?" As I said, it might seem unusual at first. Erin paused, choosing her next words with care. I'm going to hire you. You'll come work at the house, live there full time. That way, you and I will have unlimited access to each other. Joel blinked. Right. And Brent is just going to let some strange man move into his home. Erin took a slow, deep breath. This was the part she had been dreading. No, not exactly, she said. He would never agree to that. But what if I could hide you in plain sight? What if you were right there in front of him every single day, and he never gave it a second thought? And how exactly would you manage that? Our house is large, you know that. There are more chores than any one person can keep up with. A few years ago, we hired a full-time maid. I just let her go last week, fired her for ruining one of my dresses. The position is open. Erin held his gaze, letting each word land. I am going to hire you to take her place. You will live in the house with us. You will be with me every single day. And on top of all that, you'll be getting paid. Tell me, my love, what could possibly be better? Joel stared at her. His mouth hung open, and for a long moment, no sound came out. Had she lost her mind? A maid, he finally managed. You want me to be your maid. First of all, I'm not going to walk around dressed up in some maid's outfit. Absolutely not. And second, look at me, Erin. There is no way on earth Brent is going to glance in my direction and see anything other than a man. He would figure it out in a heartbeat, and when he did, he'd kill me. I'm sorry, but this is not going to work. It's the only way, Erin said, and there was no playfulness in her tone now, only quiet certainty. If you're not willing to try this, then we are done. There is no other option. Is that really what you want? To walk away from what we have? Don't you trust me? Of course I trust you, Joel said, but this is… Look, she cut in gently. Let me prove it. Let's go to the hotel. I brought the maid's uniform. It's in the car. Let me dress you up, just once, and we'll see what you think. If you look in the mirror and you honestly believe we can't fool Brent, then fine. We forget about it and move on. But at least give me a chance to show you. Joel sat there, torn apart by emotions pulling him in every direction at once. What Erin was proposing was absurd. She wanted to transform him into a woman, put him in a maid's uniform, and have him live under her husband's roof. What kind of man agreed to something like that? But then again, what kind of man let the woman he loved walk out of his life without a fight? Brent traveled at least 4 days a week on business. 4 days alone with Erin? No tapped phone lines. No investigators lurking in dim restaurants with long lenses. Just the two of them, together, whenever they wanted. It was with enormous reluctance that he nodded. Erin clapped her hands together and beamed. We are going to be so happy, she said. Once we can be together all the time, you'll see. Everything will be perfect. An hour and a half later, they lay tangled in the hotel sheets, sharing a cigarette in the soft afterglow. Joel felt loose and warm, every muscle unwound, every thought pleasantly blurred. Being with Erin always left him like this, weightless and content, as though the rest of the world had been put on hold. Could it really be true that soon they would have this every single day? The idea seemed almost too good. But even as that warmth lingered, a cold knot was already forming in the pit of his stomach. He knew what was coming next. In just a few minutes, Erin would get up, go to the car, and return with the uniform. And then the real test would begin. He wanted to postpone it, to stretch this quiet moment out as long as he could. But he knew it was coming. We had better get started, Erin said, pressing the cigarette into the ashtray with a final twist. She swung her legs off the bed and stood. Come on, stand up right here in the middle of the room so I can dress you. Joel rose slowly, every fiber of him resisting. Erin reached into a bag she had brought up from the car and handed him a pair of white cotton panties. Put these on, she said, as casually as if she were handing him a pair of socks. He pulled them up over his hairy legs and felt the heat rush into his face immediately. He stood there, arms hanging at his sides, while she moved behind him and fastened a lacy white bra around his chest, hooking the clasp with practiced fingers. "You're going to have to learn to put one of these on by yourself," she said matter-of-factly. "But don't worry, you'll get plenty of practice." Next came the nylons. Dark, thigh-high, impossibly delicate. She showed him how to gather the fabric and roll it up carefully, working it over his foot and along his calf without snagging it. Then a garter belt and the small metal clips that attached it to the stocking tops. With every new item, the absurdity of the situation pressed down on him a little harder. He felt like a man slowly drowning in silk. "Now for your uniform," Aaron announced, holding up a black garment that looked far too small to fit any grown person. Joel wrestled his way into it, tugging at seams that refused to give, and when he finally looked up at the large mirror above the dresser, he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "Look at me," he said flatly. "Do you honestly think this is going to fool Brent? Is the man blind?" "Just wait until I add the finishing touches," Aaron replied, entirely unfazed. She tied a white frilly apron around his waist, adjusting the bow at the back, then placed a small maid's cap on top of his head and pinned it in place. Joel groaned at his reflection. A broad-shouldered man crammed into a maid's outfit, hairy legs visible beneath the hem, stubble shadowing his jaw. He shook his head slowly. This was the most ridiculous idea anyone had ever had. "As you know," Aaron said, her tone shifting to something more serious, "I have access to a great deal of money. And I used it. I bought you a present, my love. Something you are not going to believe at first. It was incredibly expensive, but it is worth every penny. This is what will make the whole thing work." She held out her hand. Resting in her palm was a simple gold charm bracelet. Nothing remarkable about it at all. Joel took it from her and turned it over, frowning. "Go ahead," she said. "Put it on." He wondered where the real gift was. This little trinket looked like something from a department store clearance bin. He fumbled with the clasp, managed to close it around his wrist, and let his arm drop. "Now look in the mirror," Aaron said quietly. Joel's face froze. The blood drained from his cheeks, and for a moment he genuinely thought he was going to faint. The man in the mirror was gone. In his place stood a woman. She was striking, with dark tanned skin and long black hair that fell well past her shoulders. Her figure filled the maid's uniform, as though it had been tailored for her. Full breasts pressed firmly against the fabric, straining the seams in a way that made the outfit look almost dangerously tight. Joel's hands flew to his chest. His fingers met soft, unmistakable curves. He had breasts, real ones. He was the woman in the mirror. The room tilted. His mind scrambled to process what his eyes were seeing and his hands were feeling. The woman's legs were smooth, not a single hair anywhere, toned and golden beneath the dark nylons. Those were his legs. And between them, he did not even want to think about what had changed down there. "What have you done to me?" he gasped. But the voice that came out was not his own. It was higher, lighter, musical almost, carrying a faint accent that sounded Brazilian. "Take the bracelet off," Aaron said calmly, as if they were discussing the weather. How could she be so composed? Joel's fingers scrambled at the clasp. His hands were shaking badly. "Careful," Aaron warned, stepping closer. "Don't break it. If you damage it, you might end up stuck like that." That warning sent a bolt of ice through him. He forced his trembling fingers to slow down, to work the tiny mechanism gently, and after a few agonizing seconds, the bracelet slipped free. The change was instant. He felt the bra cups go slack as his chest flattened. The uniform pulled tight across his shoulders and back as his larger frame reasserted itself. The smooth skin roughened. Hair prickled along his legs. His reflection was his own again, short-haired and square-jawed and thoroughly male, stuffed awkwardly into a uniform that no longer fit. "Now you understand why it cost so much," Aaron said softly. "You put it on and you become Rosa, my maid. When we are alone, you take it off and you are yourself again. Do you see, my love? We can be together all the time. We can have everything we have ever wanted, and Brent will never know." Joel stood very still. His pulse was still hammering. He had just been a woman. He had felt it, every detail of it, the weight on his chest, the smoothness of his skin, the strange lightness of a body shaped nothing like his own. And now he was back. The relief of being himself again was overwhelming. But she actually expected him to do that again, to spend his days walking around as Rosa, cleaning floors and folding laundry in a body that was not his. "I know this is hard for you, honey," Aaron said gently. She reached up and touched his cheek. "It is a huge sacrifice. I understand that. But there is no other way. So put your bracelet back on and come home with me." Joel hesitated, staring at the gold chain in his hand. "You know," Aaron continued, and now there was a slight edge beneath the softness, "I spent a very long time finding the right person to buy that from. I went through more trouble than you can imagine, and I spent a fortune doing it. I did all of it for you, for us, because I want us to be together. Don't you want that too?" "Yes," Joel said. The word came out before he could stop it. "Good. Then put on your bracelet, and let's go to my house. Our new life starts tonight." It was with deep reluctance that Joel closed the clasp once more and felt the transformation sweep through him again. It was not quite as jarring this time. He had felt it once already, knew what to expect: the sudden shift in balance, the redistribution of weight, the strange intimacy of inhabiting a body so different from his own. But knowing what was coming did not make it comfortable. He still could not quite believe it was real. Magic. Actual magic. He had always dismissed such things as old superstitions, relics of medieval thinking. Yet here he stood, looking into the mirror at a beautiful dark-haired woman who looked back at him with wide, startled eyes. If he were still himself, still fully a man standing on the outside looking in, he knew exactly what he would think about a woman who looked like that. The thought unsettled him in ways he was not ready to examine. Aaron placed a pair of high-heeled shoes on the carpet in front of him. Joel slipped his feet into them, expecting to wobble and stumble, but his new body seemed to know exactly what to do. His hips shifted, his posture adjusted, and he moved across the room with a smooth, natural glide, as though he had been walking in heels since childhood. "Open the door for me," Aaron said as they reached the car in the parking lot. "From now on, we need to keep up appearances. You are my servant." Joel opened the door, held it while she slid inside, then closed it gently. He walked around to the driver's side, still marveling at the effortless grace of this borrowed body, and settled behind the wheel. The seatbelt clicked into place. He started the engine and pulled out onto the quiet street, driving toward Aaron's home. When they arrived, Joel hurried around to open Aaron's door and extended a hand to help her out. She took it with a small, satisfied smile. "Rosa," she said, giving him a quick wink, "I had them put your suitcase in the trunk. Carry it inside, and I will show you to your room." Joel popped the trunk and lifted out the suitcase waiting there. It was heavier than he expected. He adjusted his grip, straightened his back, and followed Aaron through the front door of the house, stepping across the threshold into a life he could never have imagined. Joel stepped inside and marveled. The house was not a house. It was a mansion. Vaulted ceilings rose overhead, and every surface seemed to gleam with quiet wealth. Antique furniture lined the halls. Oil paintings in gilded frames hung along the walls. Persian rugs, deep and richly colored, softened the polished hardwood floors beneath his heels. Everything was arranged with impeccable taste, the kind of elegance that money alone could not buy without a sharp eye behind it. Aaron walked him through the ground floor, gesturing at room after room as she outlined what would be expected of him. She was only partway through when she steered him toward the staircase. "I'll give you the full tour later," she said. "First, let me show you where you'll be sleeping." She led him down a long corridor to what she called the small bedroom. It was as large as Joel's entire apartment. A wide bed stood against one wall beneath a window draped in heavy curtains. The closet, when Aaron opened it, was already stocked with maids' uniforms. Most were black, but a few in bright red hung near the back. The dresser drawers were full too, every type of clothing he might need, all in Rosa's size. A black handbag sat on the dresser beside a small makeup kit, already stocked with a driver's license, working papers, and a cell phone, all in Rosa's name. Joel unpacked the few items from his suitcase, tucked it away in the back of the closet, and closed the door. Then he reached for the bracelet clasp. The moment the gold chain left his wrist, the transformation reversed. His chest flattened, his shoulders broadened. His own face stared back at him from the vanity mirror, tired and bewildered, but unmistakably his. He exhaled and leaned over to kiss Aaron. "I can't believe this," he murmured against her lips. "Put it back on, you fool!" Aaron hissed, shoving him back. Her eyes were wide with alarm. "We cannot afford to get caught. Never take that bracelet off when Brent is in this house. Do you understand me? Never." "Of course," Joel said quickly. "I understand." "Good. Then put it on again. Now. I hear him coming." Panic jolted through Joel like an electric charge. His fingers fumbled with the clasp, slipped, caught it again, and snapped it shut. In an instant, Rosa's body enveloped him. The curves, the smooth skin, the dark hair falling past his shoulders. Not a second too soon. The bedroom door swung open, and Brent Blackstone walked in. He was enormous, well over 2 meters tall, broad through the chest, with the build of a man who had once been an athlete and had not let himself go entirely. His hair was dark, touched at the temples with a distinguished fleck of gray. He carried himself with the natural authority of someone who was accustomed to owning every room he entered. He smiled at Aaron, crossed to her in 2 long strides, kissed her on the mouth, and let his hand come down with a firm pat on her backside. She let out a small squeal. Joel felt the floor drop out from under him. Watching another man kiss Aaron, touch her like that, right in front of him, it hit harder than he had expected. Being trapped in a woman's body was already its own kind of torment, but seeing the woman he loved respond to her husband's affection, even if she was only performing, felt like another piece of his manhood being stripped away. The worst part was how convincing she was. She smiled. She leaned into the kiss. She played her role perfectly. He knew she was doing it to protect them both. That knowledge did not make it hurt any less. "And this must be your new maid," Brent said, turning his attention to Joel. His deep voice filled the room. His gaze moved over Rosa's body with open, unhurried appraisal, lingering in places that made Joel's skin crawl. He was not accustomed to being looked at like that by a man. He was not accustomed to having the kind of body that invited that kind of look. The discomfort was immediate and intense, but Rosa's darker complexion hid whatever flush might have risen to his cheeks. "Yes," Aaron said smoothly. "Her name is Rosa. Rosa, this is your new master, Mr. Blackstone." "Hello, sir," Joel said. The accented female voice still startled him every time it left his mouth. Brent took a step closer. "You will do a better job than the last maid we had," he said, and the warmth was gone from his tone entirely. "You do not want me to punish you." "No, sir," Joel replied. A chill ran through him. He was not used to feeling intimidated by another man, but everything about Brent demanded submission. The sheer size of him, the weight of his stare, the way his voice seemed to press against you like a physical force. "And no sass," Brent continued. I cannot stand women who mouth off. You will obey all of my orders, every single one. Promise me that. Yes, sir. I'll do as you ask of me. Honey, don't you think that's enough? Erin stepped forward gently. It's only her first day. You're acting as though she's already done something wrong. Brent turned on her, and the temperature in the room dropped. Don't interfere with me, he said, his voice low and sharp. You know better than to undermine my authority. Who runs things in this house? You do, dear, Erin said quietly, taking a step back. Joel could see it happen in real time. The way she folded, the way the strength seemed to leave her posture. She had only been trying to shield him, and now she was paying for it. Just to remind you who is in charge, Brent went on, I think you have been spending far too freely. Your tastes have gotten out of hand. I'm cutting off your budget for the rest of the month. No more lunches with your friends. No more shopping trips. Do you understand? Yes, dear, I'm sorry. Joel watched the exchange in stunned silence. This was not the Erin he knew. The woman who had been so bold and commanding in the restaurant, so confident in her plan, had shrunk down to something small and obedient in the space of a few sentences. He had not realized how completely she lived under her husband's control. The understanding settled over him like cold water. He would need to be very, very careful. More than anything, he wanted to draw Brent's attention away from Erin and back onto himself. Mr. Blackstone, he said quickly, keeping his voice respectful. Is there anything you need me to do? I'm ready to start right away. Brent swung his gaze back to Joel, and his expression hardened. To begin with, he said, you will never speak to me again unless you are spoken to. You will learn your place in this house. First and foremost, you obey me. I am your master. After me, you obey Mrs. Blackstone, so long as her instructions do not contradict mine. After her comes the butler, then the chef, then the dogs. He paused, letting that last word hang in the air. And then you. Joel stared at him. The silence in the room felt suffocating. What had he gotten himself into? Go get your purse, Brent ordered suddenly. Now. Joel crossed the room and picked up the black handbag resting on the dresser. He brought it back and held it out with a hand that would not stop trembling. Brent snatched it from him and dug through its contents without ceremony, pushing aside lipstick and tissues until he found what he was looking for. Then he dropped the bag carelessly on the floor. He held up what he had taken so Joel could see. The driver's license and working papers Joel had noticed earlier, both in Rosa's name. I will hold on to these, Brent said evenly. You cannot leave this country, or even this house, without finding yourself in serious trouble. If you do anything to displease me, I will have you sent back to whatever country you came from. Do not attempt to leave these grounds. Do not attempt to contact anyone. I'm keeping your cell phone as well. He slipped the documents into his jacket pocket. Nobody knows you are here. Nobody will come looking for you. To the rest of the world, you no longer exist. All you are now is mine. Joel stood perfectly still, his heart slamming against his ribs. This was spiraling far beyond anything he had imagined. Brent was not merely controlling. He was something closer to dangerous. Erin, Brent said, already turning toward the door. Show her around the house. Assign her chores. Then come to bed. I'll be waiting. He paused in the doorway and looked back at his wife. I'll be using the handcuffs tonight. Yes, dear, Erin said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. The moment Brent's heavy footsteps faded down the corridor, Joel shut the bedroom door and turned to face her. He's a monster, he said. Rosa's high voice came out thin and shaken. He's not so bad once you get to know him, Erin said, though she did not sound entirely convinced. Just don't cross him. He can be very mean when he's angry. Was that angry? Joel asked, incredulous. What we just saw, that was him angry? No, not really. That was about normal. That's how he treats the help around here. Joel shook his head slowly. You didn't tell me he was going to be like this. He's domineering, Aaron. He's cruel. And handcuffs? What is that about? Oh, it's just a little game in bed, she said, waving a hand as if to brush it away. It makes him feel like he's in control. He likes that. Surely you've noticed. Well, Aaron said, straightening up and smoothing the front of her dress, we had better do what he wants. Come on, let me show you around your new home. Grab a piece of paper from the desk so you can write everything down. Joel pulled a notepad and pencil from the small desk beside the dresser and followed her toward the door. Aaron stopped before opening it and turned back to face him. One thing you need to understand, she said, her voice low and serious. When my husband is home, I cannot let him see me being friendly with you. You saw how he reacted just now. If he ever caught me being warm with the help, it would raise every alarm in his head. So when he's around, I'm going to have to order you around. I'll treat you the way he expects a servant to be treated. I'm sorry, but that's how it has to be. And when he's gone? Joel asked. Then we can be ourselves. He's usually out of the house on business at least 4 nights a week. What do you mean, usually? Aaron hesitated. Well, he's taking a few days off this week, so he'll be around more than normal. But don't worry, once he gets back to his regular schedule, we'll have plenty of time together. Joel's doubt deepened. Every new piece of information made the arrangement sound worse than the last. One more thing before we go, Aaron added. Promise me that every moment you're in this house, unless you are alone with me in bed, you will keep that bracelet on. Your door has no lock. If Brent decided he needed something in the middle of the night and walked in to find you as yourself, can you imagine what would happen? Yes, Joel said quietly. That would be very bad. Then promise me, stay as Rosa, even when you think it's safe. If you are not completely alone with me, don't even consider taking it off. I promise, but it's going to be hard. I don't exactly enjoy being in this body. I know, dear. She reached out and squeezed his hand briefly. I appreciate the sacrifice you're making for us. Now come along. Let me show you what needs to be done. Joel followed Aaron from room to room as she walked him through the full scope of his responsibilities. Dusting every surface, vacuuming every carpet, washing every window, making the beds each morning and changing the sheets twice a week, serving meals, clearing plates, cleaning the kitchen after the cook finished. The cook might send Rosa on errands. Brent or Aaron might have special tasks at any hour. Joel scribbled furiously on the notepad, and by the time they had toured the entire mansion, his list covered both sides of 3 pages. Daily tasks, weekly tasks, monthly deep cleans. He was beginning to grasp just how little free time he was going to have. There would be no lounging around waiting for Aaron. He would need to be up before the Blackstones, showered, dressed in uniform, hair done, makeup applied, ready to work before they opened their eyes. And he would not stop until they retired for the night. The reality of it settled over him like a weight. Here, Aaron said, handing him a cloth napkin as they passed through the dining room. Fold this up as if you were setting a place for dinner. Joel took the napkin and began folding it into a simple rectangle. As he creased the fabric, he heard heavy footsteps approaching from the hall. What? Are you stupid? Aaron's voice cracked through the room like a whip. Don't you even know how to fold a napkin? I showed you once already. You do it like this. She snatched the napkin from his hands, refolded it into an elegant fan shape, and shoved it back at him. Now do it again, and you had better get it right this time. Joel was confused for a split second before he caught movement in the doorway. Brent had appeared, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed, watching. Aaron was performing. Joel refolded the napkin carefully, matching the shape she had demonstrated. I'm sorry, Mrs. Blackstone, he said, keeping his eyes down. My last employer used a different fold. Did I ask you to speak to me? The slap came fast, the back of Aaron's hand striking his cheek before he could flinch. The sting bloomed hot across his skin, and he looked up at her with genuine shock in his eyes. Don't you dare talk to me as if we are equals, Aaron said coldly. You are not my friend. You are the maid. Get on your knees and beg my forgiveness." Joel dropped to his knees on the hardwood floor. "I am so sorry, Mrs. Blackstone. Please forgive me. If you ever get out of line with me again, you will answer to my husband. Now stop groveling and get up. You have work to do." Joel rose to his feet and caught sight of Brent in the doorway. The big man was smiling, a slow, satisfied smile that turned Joel's stomach. Then Brent nodded once and walked away down the hall. Once the footsteps faded, Aaron glanced at Joel and gave him a quick wink. He winked back, his cheek still tingling. They had Brent completely fooled. The days that followed were among the hardest of Joel's life. It was not just the strangeness of living in a woman's body, though that alone would have been enough to overwhelm him. It was the work. Tasks that should have taken 10 minutes stretched to 20 because he was still learning. Where were the cleaning supplies stored? Which polish went on which surface? How did the industrial vacuum work? Every room in the mansion had its own quirks and requirements, and Joel stumbled through them all, trying to commit each detail to memory while his feet ached in Rosa's low-heeled work shoes. Most of the chores were manageable once he got the rhythm of them. But mealtimes were their own particular ordeal. He was expected to carry the food out from the kitchen, serve it to the Blackstones and whatever guests might be present, and then stand silently against the wall, hands folded, waiting. If someone dropped a fork, he fetched a clean one. If someone rose from the table, he stepped forward to refold their napkin. If crumbs from the morning toast scattered across the tablecloth, he used a small silver scraper to clear them away before they could dust anyone's sleeve. He stood and watched and said nothing, invisible until needed. For those first several days, the only interaction he had with Aaron was during meals. The entire sum of their conversation amounted to 2 words repeated over and over. "Yes, Mrs. Blackstone." It was maddening. He could see her sitting right there, close enough to touch, and yet she was as distant as if she were on the other side of the world. It was not until Monday that things finally changed. Joel was dusting the carved mantel above the fireplace in the den, working a soft cloth into the grooves of the woodwork, when he heard the sharp click of high heels on the hardwood floor behind him. He turned to find Aaron standing in the doorway. "He's gone," she whispered. Joel nodded, his heart picking up speed. "Rosa, I need you to come to my room and help me with some laundry," she said, raising her voice back to its normal tone. "Yes, Mrs. Blackstone," he replied carefully. "Finish your dusting first, then come help me immediately." "Yes, Mrs. Blackstone." Excitement surged through him, and he had to grip the cloth tightly to keep from knocking the brass candlestick off the mantel. He noticed that she had whispered the important part and spoken the rest at full volume. A thought crossed his mind that chilled some of his excitement. Could Brent have certain rooms in the house wired for sound? Joel put away his dusting supplies as fast as he could, straightened his uniform, and hurried upstairs. When he reached Aaron's bedroom, she was waiting. She smiled, drew him inside, and shut the door firmly behind them. "It is safe in here," she said. "This is one of the few rooms not covered by the security cameras," Aaron explained. "I don't know what he does with the recordings, but he can go back and review the footage anytime he wants. So everywhere else in this house, we keep up appearances, every second, no exceptions." Joel nodded, taking in the weight of that. "But in here, you're safe." Her expression softened, and a warmth came back into her eyes that he had not seen in days. "You can take off the bracelet now. I need my lover." The relief was immediate and overwhelming. Joel peeled off the uniform, stripped away the bra and the nylons and every frilly thing that went with them, then unclasped the bracelet. The transformation reversed in an instant, and the feeling of returning to his own body was like stepping out of a cramped room into open air. He was himself again, his broad shoulders, his flat chest, his own hands, and his own skin. He looked at Aaron and felt the desire hit him all at once. Days of longing compressed into a single rush. Within moments, he was fully aroused and reaching for her. They came together in a tangle of hands and mouths, touching everywhere at once, kissing deeply, stumbling toward the bed. Joel was frantic. Everything he had endured over the past week, the uniform, the orders, the endless chores, the humiliation of kneeling and scraping, all of it dissolved the moment he was inside her. It was what everything had been for. But so much had been building up in him for so long that his body betrayed him. He lasted only a few minutes before he finished with a shuddering rush. Aaron stroked his hair gently. "That was too quick, my love," she murmured. "Will you finish what you started?" "What do you want?" he asked, still catching his breath. "Go down on me." He nodded. Anything to keep her happy. He slid down the bed and put his mouth on her, the way he had done many times before. But the instant he began, he realized his mistake. He could taste what he had just left inside her, and the sensation was deeply unpleasant. He pushed through it. It was his own fault for losing control so quickly. He vowed to pace himself better next time. By the time Aaron finally arched her back and cried out, he had all but cleaned her with his tongue. Afterward, they lay side by side, sharing a cigarette in the quiet room. Joel could still taste it, faintly, at the back of his mouth. He felt the urgent need for a long shower, a thorough scrubbing of his teeth, and an aggressive rinse of mouthwash. But before he could leave this room, he would have to put the bracelet back on and become Rosa again. When the moment came, he fastened the clasp with a familiar sadness and felt the woman's body settle over him once more. Over the following days, a routine took shape. He worked hard as Rosa during the daylight hours, scrubbing and polishing and serving. And whenever Brent left the house, he and Aaron found their way to each other. They made love in Brent's own bed, and the man would never be any wiser. Joel's dislike for him deepened with every passing week, especially as Aaron shared more details about Brent's infidelities. The affairs she knew about were numerous, and she suspected there were others she had not yet uncovered. "He tells me he's going golfing with his buddies," she said one afternoon, curled against Joel's chest. "But really he's off visiting one of his mistresses." "Unbelievable," Joel murmured. "So don't feel guilty about what we're doing. I certainly don't." Joel smiled and pulled her close, and soon they were at it again. It was not a bad life, really. Once Joel grew more accustomed to being Rosa and adjusted to the rhythm of taking orders from both Aaron and Brent, things settled into a pattern he could live with. In the beginning, being commanded and corrected had grated against every instinct he had. He wanted to push back, to assert himself, to remind them that he was not actually a servant. But he learned quickly that resistance only made things harder. If he simply gave in and did as he was told, everything ran smoothly. After a few more weeks, the resentment faded almost entirely. In its place came something he had not expected: a quiet relief. He no longer had to make decisions. He did not have to plan or worry or weigh his options. Aaron and Brent did the thinking. Joel just followed instructions. There was a strange comfort in that surrender, and he found himself leaning into it more with each passing day. The only times that still tormented him were the stretches when Brent stayed home. Knowing that Aaron was in bed with that man, just down the hall, ate at Joel from the inside. He wanted her for himself alone. But this was the arrangement, and it was the closest he could get to having her. It was during one of those stretches now. Brent was home for an entire week, and after 4 days without any time alone with Aaron, Joel was restless in a way that had no outlet. That night, lying in bed beneath the pink silk sheets, he did something he had never considered before. He began to explore Rosa's body. It started slowly. His hands moved over the smooth skin of his arms, his stomach, drifting without purpose. Then they came to rest on his breasts. The sensitivity startled him. A tingling spread outward from his chest, warm and electric, and his heartbeat quickened. His right hand drifted lower, past his navel, to the neat strip of hair below. At first, he only touched the outside, fingertips tracing lightly along the soft folds. Even that felt extraordinary. Before he had gone any further, he could feel moisture building, his body responding to his own touch with an eagerness that surprised him. His finger found the small sensitive spot at the top, and within minutes he was lost in it, waves of pleasure rolling through him until they crested in his first female climax. It was unlike anything he had experienced as a man. Deeper, more diffuse, radiating through his entire body rather than concentrating in one place. He pressed 2 fingers inside and continued, using his thumb to maintain the pressure above. He searched for what he had read about, the elusive spot deeper within, but could not locate it. It did not matter. 2 more intense peaks followed before the sensitivity became too much, and he had to stop, his whole body trembling and slick with perspiration. From that night forward, it became a ritual. Every evening before sleep, Joel brought himself to climax in Rosa's body. It was the one part of being a woman that he did not resent. If anything, he craved it. The pleasure was addictive, and each night he drifted off to sleep in a warm haze that made the difficulties of the day feel distant and small. Several weeks later, Brent was off on one of his supposed golf outings. Joel knew what that really meant. He waited for Erin's summons, and when it came, he hurried to her bedroom, eager and impatient. "I have a request," he said, before she could even begin undressing him. "Yes, my love?" Erin replied, reaching for the zipper at the back of her pants. "I want to try something different today. Something a little wild if you're open to it. Anything for you, baby. What do you want?" "I want to make love with you, as Rosa." Erin's hands paused on her zipper. "You mean—" "Yes. I want to feel what it's like, as a woman. But Joel, don't you want to be yourself? Don't you want to be inside me the way we always do it?" "More than anything. But wouldn't it be exciting to try it just once? Just to see what it's like?" He did not dare tell her the truth, that he had already been chasing this feeling every night on his own. That female pleasure had become something he thought about during the long hours of scrubbing floors and polishing silver. That it was no longer just curiosity pulling him toward this. It was need. His experiences as a man were wonderful in their own way, but he had begun to suspect that if Erin were part of it, a female climax could reach an entirely different level. "If that's what you want," Erin said, studying his face for a moment, "I'm willing to try." "Really?" Joel could not hide his excitement. "I want you to do for me what I've done for you. I want to know what it feels like. And honestly, if I experience it myself, I'll know exactly how to do it better for you." Erin smiled, and that was all the encouragement he needed. They came together slowly this time, kissing as 2 women, hands wandering across each other's bodies with a tenderness that felt entirely different from their usual urgency. They took their time, exploring, discovering new sensations in familiar gestures. Eventually, Joel settled back on the bed and let Erin take over. The climax that followed was the most intense he had experienced yet, a slow, deep wave that seemed to roll through every nerve in his body at once. Afterward, he lay there breathless, staring at the ceiling, his mind completely blank for several long seconds. "That was incredible," he finally managed. "You really do enjoy it, don't you?" Erin asked, resting her chin on his knee. "Yes. It was beyond anything I expected." Erin rose and crossed to her dresser, opened a lower drawer, and returned with a small collection in her hands. "Here," she said, "a couple of toys and a vibrator. I used to rely on these before you moved in. Since you seem to enjoy this side of things so much, you can use them on the nights when Brent is home and we can't be together." "That's really thoughtful," Joel said, turning the items over in his hands. Just weeks earlier, the very idea would have repulsed him. Now, he felt a quiet thrill at the thought of using them alone in his room that night, and so his nightly routine expanded. Every evening, behind his closed door, beneath the pink silk sheets, Joel used the toys Aaron had given him, bringing himself to one shuddering peak after another, before finally drifting off to sleep. On days when he had even a short break between chores, he would slip away to his room for a few stolen minutes. The pleasure was reliable and immediate, and deeply satisfying in a way he no longer questioned. Some days, when circumstances allowed, Joel still removed the bracelet and returned to his true self to be with Aaron. But more and more often, he chose to stay as Rosa, especially when they had the luxury of going slow. On one particular Thursday, Brent left early for a full day of business meetings. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, Aaron summoned Rosa upstairs. "Rosa, take off your clothes," Aaron said in a teasing, commanding tone. "Yes, Mrs. Blackstone," Joel replied with a playful smirk. "Now undress me." "Yes, Mrs. Blackstone," he said again, slipping the yellow sundress from her shoulders and letting it pool at her feet. Aaron lay back on the bed. "Go down on me, now." "Sure thing, Mrs. Blackstone," Joel said with mock enthusiasm, playing along with the game of orders. He lowered his mouth to her and began with the slow, deliberate technique he had perfected over weeks of practice. Since experiencing it himself so many times, he understood the rhythms instinctively now: where to press, where to ease off, how to build toward a crescendo without rushing it. Aaron's hands settled on the back of his head, holding him in place. Then he noticed something wrong. The taste. It was unmistakable. He recognized it immediately, and a wave of revulsion rolled through him. It was not Aaron alone that he was tasting. Brent had been with her, recently. He tried to pull back, but her hands held firm. "Don't stop," she whispered. "Clean me out, all of it." Joel's stomach turned, but he kept going, working until there was nothing left. When Aaron finally released him, he stood up and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. His expression was hard. "Why did you do that to me?" "It's my husband," Aaron said, and her voice carried genuine distress. "I'm so sorry. But I needed you to do that. He just made me stop taking my birth control. He wants me to have his baby. But I don't want to get pregnant, Joel. If I do, everything changes. We won't be able to be together anymore. I'll be consumed with caring for a child, and there will never be time for us. He made me promise I wouldn't use any contraception, and you know I can't go against him. You know what he would do to me if he found out." "But why didn't you tell me beforehand?" "Would you have done it if I had?" Joel shook his head slowly. "That's why. I'm sorry, I truly am. But I had no other choice. From now on, whenever he's been with me, I'll need you to do this right away. If we wait too long, it might be too late." Joel stood there for a long moment, the taste still sharp at the back of his throat. Then he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. "I'll do whatever you need," he said quietly. Over the following month, it became routine. Joel did not enjoy it, but he accepted it as a necessary part of protecting what he and Aaron had built together. And so far, the strategy was working. There was no sign of pregnancy. Aaron was so grateful that one afternoon, after Joel had performed his usual duty, she told him she had a surprise. She had him lie back on the bed and spread his legs. Instead of lowering her mouth to him, as she usually did, she turned away and opened the dresser drawer. He heard the sound of straps being adjusted and buckled. When she turned around, Joel's eyes went wide. Fastened around her hips was a device that jutted forward prominently, realistic in shape and considerably larger than he had expected. "It's a strap-on," Aaron said with a grin. "Trust me, you're going to love this." She pressed the tip against him gently, easing forward with slow, careful pressure. Joel gasped as it entered him, just barely, and then she pulled back. She pushed forward again, a little deeper, then retreated once more. Each time she went further, building the rhythm gradually, teasing him closer and closer to the edge until he could not hold back. She brought him to one peak after another, increasing her pace until Joel was gripping the sheets with both fists, overwhelmed by wave after wave of sensation. "I can't believe that," he breathed when it was finally over. His whole body felt boneless and electric at the same time. Aaron lay down beside him and traced a finger along his collarbone. "Now you know what it feels like for me," she said softly, "when you're a man." Joel had to pause and think. When was the last time he had actually been with her as himself? A week ago, perhaps longer. The days blurred together. Being with her as Rosa was simply so good, so uncomplicated, that he kept choosing it without really deciding to. That night in his own bed, he reached for the toy in his nightstand drawer and imagined it was Aaron again, reliving every moment until sleep finally took him. The following day, Joel reached for the bracelet clasp, intending to remove it so he could be with Aaron as a man for the first time in over a week. But before his fingers found the catch, Aaron stopped him. "Think about it," Aaron said, her hand resting lightly on his wrist. "My husband is trying to get me pregnant. If you finish inside me and I conceive, what happens when the baby comes out with your blonde hair instead of his black? He would know instantly that it wasn't his. And then we would both be finished. No. If you want to be inside me, it has to be with the strap on. Would you do that for me?" "Okay," Joel said. It was not what he wanted most, but it would still be intimate, still be them. His only frustration was the absence of sensation when he wore the device. He could move inside her, watch her respond, hear her gasps, but feel nothing from it himself. If only he could be a man in that moment. If only it could be his own body connecting with hers. But when it was Erin's turn and she strapped it on and took him, she more than compensated, driving into him with a force and rhythm that left him shaking, breathless, utterly undone. It was an ordinary Friday in Joel's life as Rosa. Erin had gone out to get her hair done, and the house was quiet, except for the hum of the washing machine. Joel moved through his chores with practiced efficiency, stripping the beds and bundling the sheets into the laundry, a task reserved for Fridays. When the linens for Erin's bedroom came out of the dryer, he carried the warm stack upstairs and began making the bed, leaning across the mattress to tuck the top sheet tightly into the far corner. Footsteps behind him. Heavy ones. "Rosa!" The voice boomed through the room. Joel straightened instantly. "Yes, Mr. Blackstone." Brent did not answer right away. Instead, he walked a slow circle around Joel, the way a predator might circle something it had already decided to take. He stopped directly in front of him, towering, close enough that Joel could smell his cologne. Joel kept his eyes on the floor. That was the rule. In his master's presence, he did not look up unless told to. "I'm having a party next week," Brent said. "You will dress in something more formal than your standard uniform. Do you own a white dress?" "No, Mr. Blackstone, I'm afraid not." "Then perhaps you'll fit into one of Erin's. Take your uniform off." Joel's stomach tightened. He did not want to undress in front of this man, but refusal was not an option. "Yes, Mr. Blackstone," he said quietly, and began untying his apron. The uniform came off piece by piece until he stood in nothing but his bra, panties, garter belt, and nylons. "The dress I have in mind has a built-in bra," Brent said. "Take yours off." Humiliation burned through Joel as he reached behind his back and unhooked the clasp. After more than 6 months as Rosa, the motion was automatic, something his fingers did without thought. He let the bra fall and immediately crossed his arms over his chest. "Arms at your side," Brent ordered. Joel let them drop. He stood exposed, vulnerable, and very still. Brent stepped closer, then closer still. "You have lovely breasts," he said, his voice dropping lower. "So full, so firm." Joel felt Brent's hand settle against his chest. The touch was surprisingly gentle, tracing slow circles around each sensitive peak. For a man so harsh in every other way, his fingers moved with a patience and skill that caught Joel completely off guard. A soft sound escaped Joel's lips before he could stop it. Then Brent's arms were around him, pulling him in, and Brent was kissing him. Joel felt the unmistakable warmth spreading between his legs, his body responding with an urgency he could not override. Months of nightly pleasure with the toys, weeks of Aaron and the strap-on. His body had learned to want this, and now it wanted it fiercely, regardless of who was offering. He looked up into Brent's eyes and saw nothing gentle there, only hunger and command. He felt Brent's fingers hook into the waistband of his panties and begin to slide them down. Joel could not bring himself to resist. His body craved it too desperately, and his fear of Brent ran too deep to allow the word no to form. Almost before he understood what was happening, Brent was inside him. "Oh, you're so big," Joel heard himself say in Rosa's breathless voice as Brent pressed deeper. Then the tingling began at the base of his skull and cascaded downward, and the first wave broke through him, followed by another and another. But when he felt the warm pulse of Brent finishing inside him, the satisfaction that flooded through his body was unlike anything he had experienced as a woman. It was deeper, more primal, more complete. As Rosa, he had just brought Brent to that peak, and some part of him that he did not fully understand found it wonderful. Brent withdrew and stood. The sudden absence of his warmth left Joel feeling strangely hollow. He did not want Brent to pull away. He would never have imagined feeling that way about this man, but the sensation was undeniable. "Get dressed," Brent said, his tone snapping back to its usual coldness. "You're a good lay, but you've got work to do. Be ready when I call for you. I'll have you again soon." Joel dressed quickly, his mind racing. What a life he had stumbled into. Both husband and wife, under the same roof, each without the other knowing. The thought thrilled him in a way that should have alarmed him, but did not. He pictured the days ahead, afternoons with Brent, evenings with Aaron, and a giddy lightness filled his chest. He smoothed his uniform, checked his reflection, and went back to his duties, humming a Brazilian folk melody as he worked. At 4 that afternoon, Brent announced he was heading out to play 9 holes. The moment his car disappeared down the driveway, Aaron called for Rosa. Joel's heels clicked briskly down the hallway. When he reached Aaron's bedroom, she shut the door behind him and turned with a look of determination. "I've changed my mind," she said. "A woman's allowed to do that. I've decided I'll take the risk. I need to be with you today as yourself, as Joel. Take off your clothes and remove the bracelet." Joel did as she asked without hesitation. He peeled away the uniform and everything beneath it, exposing Rosa's flawless dark-skinned body. Then he reached for the clasp on the gold bracelet, pressed it open, and slipped the chain from his wrist. Nothing happened. He stood frozen, staring at his reflection in the mirror. Rosa stared back. The same long black hair, the same full breasts, the same curves, the same smooth skin, the same woman's body he had been wearing for months. The bracelet dangled from his fingers, completely removed, and yet nothing had changed. Nothing had changed. "What have you done?" Aaron said, her voice sharp with alarm. "It's not working." Rosa's panicked voice came out high and thin. Joel shook the bracelet, put it back on, took it off again. Still Rosa, still a woman. His hands were trembling violently. "Stop. Get a hold of yourself." Aaron gripped him by the shoulders. "Tell me everything you did today. Everything, from the moment you woke up." "I got up, I ate breakfast, I served you and Mr. Blackstone your meal, then I did my chores. That's all?" "And?" Aaron pressed, her eyes narrowing. "When I went to make your bed, Mr. Blackstone was there. He touched me, and we—" Aaron's expression turned to stone. "You slept with my husband." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Blackstone. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just— He's a powerful man, and I couldn't—" "Wait." Aaron held up a hand. "What did you just call me?" Mrs. Blackstone? Rosa's voice came out small and uncertain. Erin closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, something cold had settled behind them. Do you understand what you've done? By being intimate with a man, you've sealed it. The transformation is permanent now. You can never go back to being Joel. Never. She let the word hang in the air. Didn't I give you enough? Didn't I give you the toys, the vibrator, everything you needed so your urges would be satisfied without this happening? But you never told me not to let him. I shouldn't have had to tell you that. Erin snapped, hands on her hips. You needed someone to explain that sleeping with my husband was off limits? And now what? Do you want to end up pregnant? How could you betray me like this? I didn't mean to betray you. Rosa's voice cracked. Please, please help me. There has to be a way to reverse it. There it is again. Mrs. Blackstone, when was the last time you called me by my name, Joel? Do you even remember? Erin stepped closer, studying Rosa's face with clinical detachment. Do you understand what is happening to you? Now that you are permanently Rosa, your old self is dissolving. Her personality is rising, and yours is fading. It won't be long before there is nothing left of the man you were. Your memories, your identity, everything that made you Joel, it will all be replaced. You'll only remember growing up as a girl named Rosa. In time, she will take over completely, and you will simply cease to exist. No, Rosa whispered. The bedroom door opened. Brent walked in, calm and unhurried. He crossed to Erin, kissed her on the mouth, and gave her a familiar pat. Then he turned to face Rosa with an expression that was no longer the indifferent master. It was triumphant. You have done well, he said to Erin. Just as you asked of me, she replied, moving to stand beside him. Rosa! Brent's deep voice filled the room. Do you still remember the night you met Erin? Yes, Mr. Blackstone, the trembling maid answered. It was at a bar. I was alone. She came up to me, and… What you don't know is that she was there with me. I chose you. I watched you from across the room, and I sent her to you. He told me to seduce you, Erin said. Her voice carried no guilt, no hesitation. To make you fall in love with me. I never cared for you, Rosa, not the way you believed. It was all performance. I did it because my husband ordered me to. No. Rosa's knees buckled, and she caught herself against the bedpost. Oh, yes, said Brent. And once she had you completely devoted, I instructed her to bring you here and use the bracelet to make you our maid. We were meticulous about keeping her from being seen with you in public. When the man named Joel Spencer vanished, we needed to make certain no suspicion fell on us. Once you became Rosa, every trace of Joel disappeared. Erin added, we kept you away from newspapers and television deliberately. You have no idea that the outside world believes Joel Spencer is dead. No one is searching for you. No one ever will. Which means, Brent said, a slow grin spreading across his face, we can do whatever we like with you, and nobody will ever know. Rosa stood naked and shaking, the bracelet dangling uselessly from her fingers. We shaped Rosa to be obedient and submissive, Erin continued. It didn't take long for you to stop resisting, did it? You gave in so quickly. You stopped making decisions. You started enjoying the relief of just doing as you were told. From the moment you clasped that bracelet, Brent said, your internal transformation began. Slowly at first. So gradually you never noticed. Rosa's instincts started surfacing beneath your own. When Erin saw the first signs that your desires were shifting, I told her to give you the toys, to get you comfortable with penetration, to make it feel normal. And once you were hooked on that, Erin said, he told me to introduce the strap-on, to accelerate what was already building inside you, to make you crave more. And once that craving was strong enough, Brent finished, I took you myself. That was the final lock. You think you were carrying on behind my back, but every step you took was a step I had planned for you. I made you into the submissive woman standing in front of me right now. You have been under my control from the very first night, and you never even suspected it." Erin leaned against her husband's chest and looked up at him adoringly before turning back to Rosa. As her personality continues to overwrite yours, you'll find that Rosa is not just obedient. She craves men. Constantly. That need will only intensify. And so we've arranged something that should suit your new nature perfectly. Part of my fortune, Brent said, was built on a very particular kind of service. I hire beautiful women. They go to a client's home, handle every domestic chore, and then provide whatever else the client desires. You would be astonished at what wealthy, lonely men will pay for that combination. And now I have a new employee, a stunning girl named Rosa, who is going to earn me a great deal of money. "We trained you well," Erin said. "You clean beautifully, you take orders without complaint, and you cannot say no to a man. Not all of our clients will be as attractive as Brent, but that won't matter to you for much longer." Rosa stared at them both, her chest heaving, her vision blurred with tears. "Pack your things," Brent ordered. "A car will arrive in 15 minutes to take you to your new apartment. Every morning at 8 sharp, you will wait at the curb. A company van will collect you and deliver you to your assigned client for the day. You will perform whatever chores they require, and you will do anything they ask of you. Some of them have unusual tastes. The only rule is this: if a client physically harms you, they answer to me." "You'll need these," Erin said, handing Rosa a small bag. Rosa looked inside and found 6 boxes of birth control pills. "We can't have you getting pregnant and missing work," Brent said. "You will take them every day without fail. Now hurry up and pack. I do not tolerate employees who are late." "Yes, Mr. Blackstone," Rosa said. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she turned toward the closet. Somewhere deep inside, the fading spirit of Joel understood with terrible clarity just how much of himself had already been erased. He was trapped now, permanently, in a body and a life that had been engineered for him from the start. And as Rosa's mind continued its slow, relentless expansion, the day would come when Joel would not even remember that he had ever existed. The tears fell freely as Rosa folded her underwear, her uniforms, and her makeup into the small suitcase, preparing for a future she had never chosen. In the bedroom, Brent put his arm around Erin's waist. "It looks like we need a new maid," he said. "I'll arrange for a temporary one from your service until we can find someone permanent," Erin replied. "Good. You did excellent work this time. He never once suspected what was really happening. Tell me, how did you convince him to come here in the first place?" Erin shrugged lightly. "Men will do almost anything when they believe they're getting what they want. It really wasn't that difficult." "Very well. I'll begin creating a new identity for the bracelet. We'll go out tonight and find our next recruit." Brent kissed the top of her head. "Wear that red dress of yours. The one with the sparkles. This time, I want someone with refined tastes. We'll try the Platinum Room uptown. They have a jazz ensemble on Friday nights, and the crowd will be thick with prospects." "Whatever you wish, my love," Erin said, pressing closer against him. "You know I only want you." "I know. And perhaps next year, after we've added a few more girls to our operation, we can start thinking about a family." Erin smiled up at him, and Brent smiled back. Outside in the hallway, the sound of Rosa's heels clicked away toward the stairs, growing fainter with each step. Soon there would be an empty room, a vacant position, and a gold bracelet waiting for a new wrist. Soon they would have another maid.